This is an introduction to the map of airport-related injustice and resistance. So far, 67 cases have been documented and analysed, and this map shows the geographical spread. The main reason for opposition to airport projects is people resisting eviction from their homes and farmland. Airport projects often have ambitious projections for the number of passengers and are frequently related to plans for tourism growth. In Peru, Chinchero Airport, being built to increase the number of visitors to the Machu Picchu area, has projections to handle 8 million passengers a year, but this number of visitors would have serious impacts on the very cultural and ecological treasures that attract people to the Machu Picchu area. In Ireland, a new runway at Dublin Airport, it aims to increase the capacity of the airport to 40 million passengers a year, and already farmers are leaving the area due to construction impacts. In India, a large area has been cleared to make way for construction of Navi Mumbai Airport, which it is projected would ultimately handle 60 million passengers a year. The project has involved eviction of residents from 10 villages from their homes and farmland, and that's impacted about 3,500 families. Another type of development is airports built specifically to serve tourism resorts. The picture shows the airport on Siquijor Island in the Philippines, which is constructed specifically to serve tourism development of resorts and hotels on a large area of the island. We're not just looking at passengers, people are also being displaced for planned cargo airports, and the map includes a cluster in the south of Nigeria, all of which involve bulldozers arriving without warning and destroying people's farmland and crops. In Abudo, bulldozers arrived without warning and began destroying palm plantations, and one man died immediately after witnessing his palm plantation being bulldozed. In Ebonyi, there's a great many reports of threats, intimidation and harassment of people protesting against destruction of their farmland and crops for the airport project, with women being particularly badly affected. The Ogun Airport project is an instance where the land area being earmarked for the project is so large that it begs the question whether an airport of such a scale is actually feasible, or could the project be to some extent a pretext for a land grab. In Ekiti, again, bulldozers arrived without warning and began destroying farmland and crops. And there was a success story in that many of the affected residents managed to start a court case against the project, which eventually succeeded, and the airport project was halted, but came at a tremendous human costs, with 10 farmers dying reportedly of shock. The map includes several examples of Aerotropolis, or airport city projects. That's airports surrounded by commercial and industrial development that's designed to be aviation dependent. There's a list on the left of the slide, and most of these projects are very large scale and involve considerable displacement of people. The map shows a project in Indonesia, Kertajati Airport and Aero City. The rectangular area is the land allocated for the airport itself, with the adjoining area being allocated for the associated Aero City. And in the course of this project, residents of 11 villages were forcibly evicted. As I mentioned, the main reason for people resisting airport projects is loss of their homes and farmlands and livelihoods. And here's a few examples. Another airport city project in Indonesia, New Yogyakarta International Airport, where there were very many documented human rights violations, with people being forcibly evicted from their homes and farmland, documented example of police violence against people resisting eviction and protesting, and also activists being imprisoned. In Kenya, one of the impacts of construction of Isiolo Airport was serious disruption to water supplies, affecting surrounding communities, impacting on their daily lives, and including farming activities. In Nepal, resistance to land acquisition for new Pokhara Airport is an instance where protests escalated to violence between police and protesters, with reports of injuries and also reports of unprovoked attacks on protesters by police. One of many projects in India is Salem Airport, where residents of 4 villages resisting eviction from their farmlands and impacts on their forests and loss of their livelihoods. And there was repression, with an activist being imprisoned. And the airport project is linked with another mega project, a proposed 8-lane highway. Finally, in Vietnam, a long-running land dispute over allocation of farmland for a military airfield escalated in January, when there was a police raid on a community, which resulted in the death of a community leader and also 4 police. The map includes several success stories where airport projects have been stopped, but more frequently success stories are more a case of partial victories, with airport projects being delayed or scaled down. In Bangladesh, a new airport and a large area of wetlands was announced suddenly, triggering enormous protests by people whose livelihoods would have been affected, and the project was very quickly cancelled. But in France, the proposed new Nantes airport was eventually cancelled, but that was only the case after many, many years of protests, which included an alternative community established on the site of the airport, which actually demonstrated more sustainable community and way of living. In China, new Sanya Airport project was delayed and scaled down after environmental organisations raised concerns about the impacts, including on the wildlife habitat of a very rare species of dolphin. In Indonesia, a dispute went on for decades, people wanting fair compensation and rehabilitation for land that was taken for the airport. They resorted to repeated blockades of the runway, and finally, in 2018, there was a partial victory in that some of the people whose land was taken received recognition of their land rights. In India, there were plans for an airport on wetlands in Iranmala, and some of the site was cleared, but a vigorous campaign was successful and the airport project was cancelled. And there's encouraging stories because some of the land that was destroyed is being restored, such as restoring the original route of streams on the wetlands. When airports become operational, there's health impacts of the emissions from aircraft. The picture shows a project in California where communities living near San Bernardino Airport are opposing a massive air cargo facility that would result in high levels of pollution, not just from the aircraft, but from the associated diesel truck traffic, which would have serious negative health impacts, in particular on respiratory conditions. An example of a serious aviation fuel leak is shown here in New Mexico. It went on for several decades, fuels leaking from a military Air Force base. The map shows the plume of how over the years the fuel leak has spread underground, and there are still concerns that it could enter people's water supplies. The map includes several instances of airports built specifically to serve fossil fuel development, and an airport is often an early stage of the infrastructure with such oil developments in order to fly in workers and also deliver equipment. In Timor Leste, Suai Airport opened recently, and there was talk of tourism, but the passenger terminal lies empty, an embarrassing white elephant, but the airport has been used to deliver workers and equipment for the offshore oil project, which, as shown on this slide, is early stage development for offshore oil projects all along the coast with another airport and another airstrip. Two similar projects in Papua New Guinea. Como Airfield was built specifically to serve the country's LNG project. The map shows routes for equipment arriving at the airport and also by ship. During construction, there was a serious landslide that obliterated 2 villages, and even though the landslide was very near the site where aggregate was being extracted for the project, there was never a thorough investigation. And the final picture shows oil equipment being delivered for the LNG project in one of the world's largest cargo aircraft. Similarly, in Uganda, Hoima Airport is under construction, and there's talk of future tourism, but the key purpose is to serve oil development on the coast of Lake Alberta, for example, flying in equipment for a nearby oil refinery. The overhead satellite images shows the airport being constructed, and it's part of an early stage of development for oil projects, including the world's longest heated oil pipeline extending all the way through Tanzania to the coast for exports. And both these projects involve significant displacement of people, and struggles for rehabilitation and fair compensation continue. So that's an outline of the 67 cases documented and analysed, but we're aware of at least 300 cases where there is opposition to airport projects, which merits further investigation. And I do urge you to get involved and contribute information, because there's a very good system for people to get involved in documenting airport projects. And I'll finish with a final slide, which is considering construction in the COVID-19 era. The picture is a fungi airstrip and project camp built specifically to serve the Mozambique LNG project. This area emerged as the epicentre of Mozambique's most serious COVID-19 outbreak. And construction projects were of particular concern because of large volumes of workers travelling into an area, living in cramped conditions, and then often moving away from the area, which makes it very difficult to contain COVID-19, and it makes it very difficult for communities and health officials to contain outbreaks of the virus. And it's important we consider the impacts of construction in the COVID-19 era, because very many projects, including airport construction, are continuing.
Do you have a question, Tove?
So I would like to know who has collected this information.
Rose, would you like to answer that?
Hi.
Who has collected this information?
Yeah, there's a lot, quite a lot of contributors, and Sara will have a much better view of who has actually contributed to the cases. But I must say, from some of the work I've done, it's often from news reports it's sometimes quite difficult from a distance to, I've found, to actually get in touch with the people who are actually affected. Yeah, and that's something I think that we can work on. But it's a mixture. I think Sara will fill us in, but it's a mixture of people, some people who are actually affected, and community groups who are supporting them, and researchers, investigative journalists, academics.
Thank you, Rose. I think Sara wants to add something.
Yes, just to add that I will address this issue in my presentation, and I'm going to explain how the people contribute and how is the moderation, the check of the information. And if you would like to collaborate, I will explain how to do that. So it's a co-production of knowledge. It's people from the ground and also people who find information online, but we check and moderate all of this information.
Thank you, Sara, for this teaser for your presentation that will come later on. Any other questions of seeing now very concise, and we will now directly dive into the presentation of 3 cases of airport conflicts. And for the first of this, I'm very happy to welcome with us Sandeep Shinde from the Terai Airport Expansion Opposing Task Force. Sandeep, I'm handing over to you. Your audio is not yet started. I'm trying to unmute you. Sandeep, can you hear us? So whilst Sandeep is hopefully trying to get his microphone working, maybe in that case we can start with the second case study for now first, with Bhola Bhattarai from Nafan, Nepal, who will not tell us about an expansion, but about a whole new airport project in Nijgat Airport. And Bhola is already sharing his slides, so please go ahead. Thanks for being with us. We cannot yet hear you. Now we can hear you.
Okay,
Thanks a lot for being with us, even though you're in strict lockdown. It's great that you can join us online.
Thank you, Mira, and good evening, everyone. I'm Bhola from Nepal. Actually, I'm working with National Forum for Advocacy as an advisor, and I am also a part of Nijgat Airport concern group. We have a environmentalist as well as activist in a big coalition, and I'm part of that coalition. So today I'm going to talk about this case study of Nijgat Airport, which is a big project that proposed by Nepal government to implement in the central part of Nepal. So I don't know, can I move it? Okay. So firstly, I would like to inform you about the location and possible harm if the government will construct this airport. So this proposed airport is in central part of Terai. It is nearby Kathmandu. Kathmandu is the capital city of Nepal, and we have different 3 ecological zones in Nepal, like Himalayan region, hilly region, and Terai. Terai is the southern side of Nepal, bordering to India. So this is in the central part of Terai, that the plain area. So Nepal is divided into 7 provinces, and it is lie in the province number 2, which has only 4.5% area in total in that particular provinces. So the proposed site is covered by 8,000 hectares of natural dense forest. Mostly Suai robusta is the species that is naturally grown from the hundred of years. So it is, the proposed site is also the elephant corridor from east to west, that Terai region, and it is also the adjoining area of Sara Wildlife Reserve and Chitwan National Park. So when we talk about environmental concern, that both 2 national park as well as wildlife reserve is nearby this proposed airport site. So the total area, out of total 8,000 hectare, almost 7,000 area is under the community-based forestry. That means community are already started to conserve, manage and utilize that forest resources under 2 collaborative forests. That means the people are managing this forest under this collaborative management of forest, where government as well as community are collaborating since last 10-15 years. So it is also the site of carbon, that emission reduction site, which is proposed by Nepal government in Forest Carbon Partnership Facility in World Bank. So it is under that particular area. The government is proposing one particular landscape to have the carbon fund, to access the carbon fund. So this 8,000 area is also under that project. So based on this, different comparison with different international airport, the Nijgad airport is covering huge amount of land as well as forest area. That means which is not needed in particularly in our, the capacity of Nepalese society. So this is what we are advocating with Nepal government. So when we talk about the social economic aspect, I already mentioned about this, the societies, the 2 collaborative forests, which are managing more than 7,000 hectare forest is under this area, and it will hamper the access of those people who are getting benefit from the forest. So there are different religious temples and religious site as well, and thousands of pilgrims visits these temples every year. One of the major, the indigenous community, which is called Tharo indigenous people, who are living in that area, and they will lose their traditional culture and their value system if it will be constructed. So based on the calculation from the government side, the total cost of this airport will be 755 billion Nepali rupees, which is very huge amount of the huge cost to construct this airport. And they are also proposing to cut 2.4 million trees, the natural trees. So maybe when we talk about the conservation and the promotion of ecology, and government themselves proposing to cut this huge amount of trees species. And again, the question raised that they are proposing that land under the emission reduction area, then again, when they will construct this project, then more than 231 billion rupees will be the equivalent to 231 billion rupees will be lost. So as per the current rate of that 2.4 million trees, the total amount market value of the forest product will be 594 billion. That means the total the cost of the forest product will nearly to the expenditure of the cost of airport. That means there will be a interest of government agencies to cut trees and sell in the market to get their own benefits. And we don't know will they construct this airport or not, but they want to cut these trees. So as I mentioned earlier, that 4.5% of total forest area is in that particular provinces. then if they cut this 8,000 hectares, then there will be no any more forest area in that region. So it will also cover 868 square meters of total watershed, where 9 rivers and many other streams are there to supply water chain in the agricultural purposes as well as for drinking water. So more than 500 species are counted. Bird species are counted in that area, and if the airport will be constructed, then those bird species will be lost. And the flora, 23rd endangered flora are found in that area, and also 22 endangered wildlife are recorded. So I already mentioned that there are adjoining one national park and one wildlife conservation site and one national park. That means that it will be very important area. If the airport will be constructed, then the whole the site of the national park and wildlife reserve will be in the crisis. So this is the total Terai landscape site, and in the central part of this area, the Mingorría airport is proposed by the government. So again, more than nearly 3,900 hectares irrigated land are getting service from those the stream and rivers, and it will be hampered by this airport. And there are already 400 fish ponds covered in that area, below the side of this proposed area. That means if the airport will be constructed and the whole river system will be damaged, and the 400 fish ponds will be also in problem. So 1.2 million people are living in the southern part of that proposed land. That means they will have to face the water crisis in the future. So I mentioned that more than 6 million forest users who are getting support, that the whole Suai Harbor siltation is controlled by that area, that forest land. If the airport will be constructed, then the whole siltation will be, will create a problem to the people who are living in the southern side of that proposed land. So this area is also strategic because of the 11 movement route. So this is also the important aspect of environment. So based on this, this situation, we civil society, the environmentalists and activists come together and initiated our advocacy campaign. So I just want to highlight very few advocacy campaign that we have already conducted in this area. We have organized different like CHIPCO type of activities. We have organized local consultation with different indigenous leaders about to inform and get their ideas, their perception about this proposed airport. And we also talked with forest user groups, and we informed them about the pros and cons of this airport. So they are becoming very angry now, and they are confronting with the activities that implementing by the airport project currently. And we also have organized different demonstration in front of the ministries, different ministries in Kathmandu. And we also handed over our memorandum to Minister of Forest, Minister of Tourism, and also organized series of interaction with different stakeholders to inform, to get involved them in this campaign. We also organized protests in different part of, like in different part of city as well as in the local level. We use different advocacy banner. We are also engaging with parliamentarians. I inform them about the possible harm of this airport. Also meeting with different political leaders, prime minister, ex-ministers, and we also observe the site together with parliamentarians. These are the things that we are conducting our advocacy campaign in Mingorría Airport. So maybe it is my first time that I'm talking about this our advocacy campaign with global team. So I want to learn, I want to hear from different experiences from you, so that we can learn and inform our team to protest or to protect our land and our forest in the days to come. Thank you. So I just want to add one more slide that we have also public interest litigation from one of our partner organization, ProPublic, and other 9 lawyers. We have submitted our writ in the Supreme Court of Nepal, and it is the hearing is going on. Maybe after lockdown will be over, then we will have final hearing of this writ. So that's it from my side now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bhola from NAFAN Nepal, for sharing this overwhelming numbers on the effects this huge airport project would have on the local environment, the local forest communities and indigenous people. And also thanks a lot for sharing a glimpse of your field work and how you consult with affected communities and other activities you have on informing on these devastating impacts of the project. Are there questions to Bhola? I must say I was overwhelmed that there are so many people being affected. What is the what is the status of consultations? Are they being consulted in this project?
Actually, from project side, there is no consultation at all. That is why we are talking with local people, indigenous communities, and we are informing them about their rights of free, prior, informed consent. You know, Nepal is rectifying ILO convention, but they are not implementing properly in the field. That is why we are talking and we are educating the local communities, especially with indigenous community. We are engaging with them and making aware about their rights. That is why, you know, currently people, local people themselves are trying to get involved in this project. That is the things that is happening currently.
Thanks so much. It's wonderful that you're working on this, informing people how they could actually make use of their rights. Are there further questions to Bhola? You can raise your hand.
Adam is raising a hand, I think.
It's Brian from Toronto. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. I was wondering where the financing for this project is coming from and who are the owners?
Yes, thank you, Brian. Actually, Nepal government is initially they are negotiating with different funding agency. They are talking with different international organization, and more probably they are negotiating with Qatar currently. Maybe the Qatar government is trying to get involved, but in the same times, the India is also interested to invest in this project. I don't know, but it is not open out. In the, only government and those agencies are involved and trying to negotiate, but it is not transparently open up to the stakeholders.
I can see Tatu has sent me a private message in the chat with the question, what is the stance of the Ministry of Environment?
Actually, we have Ministry of Forest and Environment together. We have different meetings with Minister of Forest and Environment in different level. And initially, they were in position that they were supporting our position in the initial day. But later on, when government is government prioritized this project as a priority project, then later on they are just taking that position back. That means they are initially they were positive with our concern, but now they are being silent. That means they are supporting to the whole government system.
Do we have any raised hands, Manuel?
Yes, Sara has raised her hand.
Sara, please go ahead.
Thank you, Bhola. I would like to ask you if there are more environmental conflicts close to this area, if you have some relations with them or with other resistance, and with other airport protests in Nepal or India or other regions close to this area.
Actually, our group are not much familiar about other conflict about airport, but we have environmental, conflict in that region, especially this proposed site is under collaborative forest, that community-based forest, before 10 years, which was managed by government. During that time, government was not ready to hand over that area to community. After having series of dialogue, discussion, and protest, the local community got that opportunity to involve in to protect, manage, and utilize that forest resources under the community-based management. So that is one that concerns. And again, that area is adjoining with Suai range. Suai is the the vulnerable small hills nearby that site, and the people who are living in the south are advocating to conserve that Suai region so that they will have sustainable water resources, as well as to control siltation and flooding. That Suai region should be protected. But in the name of Suai, and there is a huge Suai project is implementing by government, but in the same times that 8,000 area is proposing for the airport. That means there is a conflicting issue, and in the same time, what I can say that people are aware about the environmental issues, that it will be easy to us to educate them about the environmental education to people, and we can make their one organization to protest, to make the voice against this airport. That is the things. Yes.
Thank you, Bhola. I cannot raise my hand in the chat, unfortunately. I would have another question. Are there other questions, Manuel? Did you receive other questions, or can I go ahead?
No, no other questions. I can
regarding the financing and who will undertake the work, I also heard that Zurich Airport is applying for the concession to actually build the airport. Do you know any updates on the status of this?
Actually, we don't know about that yet. We heard about it, but we don't know any like evidences.
Okay, thank you. Because that also might be an interesting linkage on how to increase pressure on the project developers, maybe with our members in Switzerland. That could be an idea. Okay, thank you very much for this in-depth insight into this really devastating and overwhelming project, and into your important work on the field. And we will later on still have time to discuss it in correspondence to other airport conflicts. Since Sandeep hasn't signed up again, I would now hand over to our third case study, to Adam Isham from Save Maldives. Thank you very much for joining us, even though you're in lockdown and in Ramadan, so a very special situation. Thanks a lot for taking the time to join us. I will be sharing your slides, and you still have to unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Hi, I'm Isham from Maldives. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. And sorry, I'm just getting the slideshow started. There you go.
So today, before we start, we'll just like to thank for organizing this webinar, for all of us to join and share our experiences. So Save Maldives, today I'm also joined by two of my team members, Forme and Mohammed Ali, and both of them are here as well. So when they have the question,
Isham, if you don't mind, can you speak up a little?
Yep, sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you hear me now properly?
Yes.
So I was saying before we start, I'd also like to introduce my team members, Forme, who's here, and also Mohammed Ali, who's also from Save Maldives. Today we're going to do a little bit of sharing about airport and hotel project in the Fano Island here in the Maldives. So as you can see on the photograph on the right side of the slide is actually an aerial photograph of the island, which was the area that was planned to build an airport. So Save Maldives is actually a movement that was formed in 2017, a civic movement that was formed in 2017 because one of the airports were planned and which they have already completed building an airport on a mangrove in the north of the country. Since then, we've been working very closely with almost all different national and international organizations, movements to raise these issues, to find ways to work together and to share our experiences. So we're very glad that we got this opportunity to share our experiences of Fano Island here in Maldives. So can we have the second slide, please? So this is the first photo that you can see on the left side is an aerial photograph of the island. So Fano Island is an inhabited island of in the atoll of Ra. And the left one you can see is the planned, it's a planned proposed airport development plan. You can see that the most portion of the island is taken up for the airport and also a hotel that was supposed to be built on the island, caging the rest of the community away from access into the resources on the island. This island is very, with a very small population, just of around 466 people, but they have a lot of farming areas on the island, and for many other uses they have been using the island. But the way the airport was proposed and this hotel was proposed, the island would not have access for any kind of natural resources or any part of the island. They'll just be in a cage. Can we have the next slide? So when we look at some of the project details, there was a company called Universal Enterprises, one of the largest hospitality companies in the Maldives, who also operate several resorts in the atoll of Ra Atoll. Already they have existing 7 resorts with around 1,616 bed capacity in the atoll. And the company was supposed to be financing the Fano Airport through bulk purchase of advance sales of air tickets. And they have, in May 2018, Island Aviation Services, the owner of the operator of Maldivian, which is the national carrier, the company was awarded $8 million contract to develop and operate the airport. So the construction was scheduled to begin in August 2018. The 3-phase construction phases were scheduled to complete in 12 months at the cost of 120 million in local currency. But there were a lot of impacts that this project would have on the livelihood and the people of the island. So 31 hectares of vegetation would have lost, which is equivalent to 54 football fields in size. With this land area was mostly used for agriculture, and they would also lose, the islanders would also lose 2.18 kilometers of beach to the airport security zone and the gated hotel. So, and they also plan to reclaim some part of the lagoon for the airport development as well. We have the next slide, please. So some of the action, we all mobilized as a civic movement, and other interested parties also mobilized to make sure that the project does not move forward. As you can see on the left side, this is an image of people protesting on the streets of Male, the capital city. There was a petition filed and submitted to the Tourism Ministry, Universal Enterprises, and Island Aviation and the Environment Protection Agency on July 3rd, 2018. Public demonstrations were held. Street protests were also held. As you can see on the right side, the people are protesting outside one of the main government buildings here in the capital, Male. The petition that was submitted to these agencies and these companies did went through. Activists also raised the concern about having an existing airport, domestic airport, just 26 kilometers away from the island of Fano, and the airport at Ifuro Island, which is just 25 minutes away from a speedboat. This action, this movement against this sort of development really triggered a lot of people to come out and voice out and participate online as well. So we ended up having a hashtag called #SaveFano, which was trending at the time when this was happening on the ground. So there was a lot of conversation about it in the local media, on TV and radio shows, and using all different avenues that was available. People were raising the concern, and on this petition, we have to note that more than half of the island's population actually signed this petition that was submitted to all these different agencies. Can we have the next slide, please? So these are some of the photographs that we so these are some of the photographs that we have taken during the protests while the protests were happening. The one on the left, you can see, is the company that was contracted to build the airport on the island. So people were protesting outside their head office here based in Male, and Environmental Protection Agency. As you can see on the right side, there was a protest inside the Environment Protection Agency that gives the final authority to move forward with the project. So Fano Airport project was also politically a very important campaign for the former President Yamin, who was trying to use this project as a way to be re-elected for the second term. Airports are usually here used, and I think it's a global phenomenon that airports and other development projects are used as a campaign promise, as a way to garner public support, and using it as a marketing strategy for the political gain. So all political parties use these type of projects during the election period. So the project proposal and the project approval happened during a time when the presidential election was coming ahead of us. So this was one of the very good reasons why I think there was a lot of resistance, and also for the common good, because a larger portion of the island will not be used or available for the public use. We have the next slide. So now we'll have a look at who gets benefited from the airport projects. It's a very simple question. We have almost 1.5 million tourists arriving in Maldives in 2019, and we have 400,000 people, including migrant workers, according to Census 2014, roughly around 400,000 or more. So these airports only benefit the tourism industry, big businesses, airport developers, and political parties who use these projects as a way to campaign, to promote and advocate for their political clout. Who gets affected? The island community obviously gets affected by these kind of projects, and the next question is, how is the conflict dealt with? There are no official mechanisms here to deal with these kind of conflicts, but it was more of the civic movements, activists, advocates coming out and doing what they could do with little or no budget or any kind of support from major groups. And most of these airports are also linked to the resorts to transfer tourists. And we also like to highlight that most of these resorts were given through MMPRC grant for auction from 2013 to 2016. This is again contributing more towards the wealth inequality in the Maldives, and adding to more vulnerable communities. The island communities are very badly affected. Their ancestral island land is being used, is being removed from them for these kind of projects without proper consultation. It's token consultation, leading to loss of land and human rights issues as well. Can we have the next slide, please? So some of the outcomes, if you look into the outcomes of all the activism, advocacy, and lobbying that took place, we have a legal process which is called the Environmental Impact Assessment, which is authorized and managed by Environmental Protection Agency. They rejected the EIA report that was done and submitted to them on 14th November in 2018, which is obviously a good win for the people. And the new government, the current government, decided not to proceed with Suai Airport project, but they've also started developing other questionable projects in Halit, Porafushi, Chaveni Fonadur, Laveni Madivaru, Gapta Mavaru, and Paras Makara. We already have existing around 20, close to 15 to 20 airports active and running, and including these questionable airports. So the timing of the project made it harder for the government to implement this kind of project, which led to this win for us. And Save Maldives was just a part of this advocacy. They had many other movements, NGOs, leaders, community influencers, a lot of people working together. So we were very glad to have been a part of this success story, and we hope that this continues, that this kind of advocacy continues, so that we will be able to stop questionable projects, not just the airport project, but also other projects. I think that's all from our side. Thank you. If you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Isham, for this presentation, and also congratulations on this inspiring success story. Yeah, I think it was quite good to see this huge impact the tourism industry has on the islands of the Maldives, and this example really showed the tremendous dimension of how actually local livelihoods are being caged away for hotel and airport complexes, and how even the beach access is being restricted. Yeah, so thanks a lot for sharing this inspiring example of where a campaign was actually successful. And I will now give the floor to everybody. Are there questions to Isham? His image is now frozen, but I hope he can still hear us.
Yes, I can hear.
Perfect.
Clearly.
There's a question,
Rose.
Rose.
Hello. Thank you, Adam. That was really, really informative, and it's so good to hear a success story. But I just wondered if you could say a bit more about the into like how it links with the hotel project, and or maybe also if they're always saying that jobs will be created, you know, to expand on that, because it seems so often that these projects are justified by promising employment. Is that something you come across?
Yes, we do have that. I think my colleague would be in a better position to answer that.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I mean, mostly governments or companies, they would say at the beginning that it would create employment, but we did a research on it as well. So if you think of like the Kudahuvadu Airport, which was built in 2017 again, they promised jobs, but it was only 39 jobs in the airport. So even in Kurudufushi, there's less than 20 people in 20 jobs created in the airport. And even now they bring in staff from Hanimadu to Kurudufushi to operate airport once every day. So the cost of it as well. So it's a big lie that the governments and project developers made. You would create jobs, but you don't actually create jobs. The other thing is that resort owners and resort developers want to develop airports. It's not for general public to use it. It's really expensive here to travel. And there's also another issue that we haven't shared. I mean, there's a difference between when tourists use the airport, it would be much expensive, the tickets, and I think we need to explore into these details, like if there are international laws that they can do this expensive to travelers, and there's a local rate for domestic when we travel as well. So the resort owners use airports to take more tourist resorts, and we don't even know how much they charge from them as well. So the money doesn't come into our economy. It stays in their offshore accounts in Luxembourg and places like that. So it's really difficult to analyze or find data regarding how much we earn and how much we get from the aviation industry. So mostly resort owners, yeah, they get benefit from it. So they would want to develop resorts because airports, because they have resorts nearby.
Just to add to what Format just said, in addition to the jobs, and on almost all the EIA reports that we have read, they always talk about socio-economic benefits. And one of the things they come up with is a list of jobs that would be created. The list would just include menial work during the project time, but not post-project time. But so it doesn't necessarily reflect, or using that as an excuse to approve these projects has become something very common. And we have seen that the other airport that I was talking about in the presentation, which is just 25 minutes away, we just read on the news a couple of days ago that they're going to sell that airport is open for sale with a hotel on it. Not this one, the one that is in the same atoll but close by. So it's a business. It's less of impact on people, on locals, but it's more of a business open for bigger names. Like we have the largest seaplane. We are the largest seaplane operators. We have close to 60 to 70 seaplanes that I operate in, but it's exclusive more or less just for the tourists. And very few times locals get to be on it. It's very expensive as well. And there's no benefit out of it that the locals actually get to enjoy.
Thanks a lot, Adam and Forme, for this very detailed insight into who actually benefits from those projects. Is there another question of understanding? I see Alejandro is raising his hand manually.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. My question is in relation to about this new airport project. are these projects? I mean, these are not airports for the for all the population. It's just for the elites. So for some rich tourists or business people who go to Maldives. It's not for, no? So, I mean, this could be another argument. Who is going to be benefit from that kind of mobility getting into the island? So is that infrastructure is not for Maldivian people, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a misunderstanding that people think, general public think that, when government promises development projects like airports and harbors, that they would get benefit from it. But they don't really go into deeper, issues like, if there's someone, they would argue that, you could, because Maldives is very centralized. All the facilities, like basic facilities, are developed in Male and in the capital. So if you have to go to, show to a doctor, you have to go to Male. So what they use is they would say that they can use the airport to go to Male, but the expenses are really high if you come to Male and stay there, and then you show it to the doctor, and the ticket price is really high, and you have to go back as well. So these are like misunderstandings, and people don't really understand because we are not really aware of all these issues. It's really expensive if we compare to domestic flights as well, and it's not the solution for us to travel for basic necessities to Male, for education, for health, or for whatever reason, But the people of the island think that it's development if you build an airport in the island. So it's a misunderstanding, and we need to talk about these issues more.
And another question, in many places like this, there is a big issue with many migration workers who go to these places to work in the tourism sector. So sometimes tourism sector or the construction of different infrastructure are not even made by the locals, even if not by many migrant workers who are coming to them. So I think there are many Filipino people living in Maldives, isn't it?
Migrant workers, it's a huge issue, and we have been covering this issue for a long, in the last 5-6 years, because you bring in migrant workers to work in these development projects, but once the projects are done, they are left here, so they have to struggle to find jobs, and they don't even have. Some of them are undocumented migrant workers. Like there's more than 65,000 undocumented migrant workers here. And if you look into pandemics like COVID and right now, they are suffering, and we have been talking about these issues, and they have been put into a big camp, and there are more Bangladeshi workers who's got COVID from from congestion living in Male and also the other place. Yeah, it's a huge issue. Yeah. There are Filipinos like living here in development projects. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for also highlighting that the jobs that are created are actually just there for a short time, and then people are left with no livelihood. I see that now Sandeep Shinde from Karad has also joined us, so I would end the Q&A session for Safe Maldives now. Thank you, Isham, and thank you, Forme, for this very informative and success story, and also for showing that there are other ongoing dubious airport projects. So it's worth to have a close look also to what other projects are being carried out. So thanks a lot for your time and for sharing the final case. And now I'm handing over to Sandeep, who is joining us from Karat. Thank you for being here with us.
Good evening, one and all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm a representative of a task group which is protesting against expansion of Karad Airport. Actually, the project of expansion of Karad Airport was declared in the year 2011, and when this was declared, next day our protest was started in the form of rallies, sit-in protest, and we have organized a voting of 5 villages which are affected by this project. And out of 5 villages, all farmers were voted against the expansion of the Terai Airport. And the percentage was 96% of the farmers voted against the expansion of Terai Airport in 2011. So since last 9 years, our protest is going on. So question is regarding who is going to benefit out of the Terai Airport expansion. The fact of the matter is that no one, no local farmer, no resident of Terai is going to benefit from this expansion. The beneficiaries are builders, politicians, and government officers. In our state of Maharashtra, the method of grabbing method of grabbing land is they will acquire land illegally, will not do any project, and the land will be sold to builder lobbies.
Sandeep?
So many builder lobbies are having eye on our farmland. So this project is not going to benefit anyone. Second question, who are going to affect? So the farmers.
Your signal is not very stable, but
Yes,
maybe
farmers of 5 villages are totally affected, and 3,200 acre land is in danger. The irrigation scheme, which provides water to 3,200 acre land, is getting totally affected because of the airport expansion. So 25,000 people are depending on this irrigation scheme. So this airport expansion will totally damage us. This expansion will damage environment, and this is a socio-economic destructive project. And we are fighting against the expansion for many years, but current situation is that government has started land acquisition. And on paper, they have acquired this land, about 100 acre land they have acquired on paper, but still farming is going on that land. So this is the current situation. Because of your letter in the month of September, they have stopped that process and they have to rethink because of the international pressure which is provided by your letter. They have stopped the process. So we seek more help from you in the form of letter to our CM Uddhav Thackeray and PM Mr. Narendra Modi. If you are giving letters, then definitely they will listen to us, because many of the protesters are poor farmers. They cannot go to the court. Their financial condition is very poor. And some of the agents from the builder lobby are placed to give money and to grab their land. So this situation is created by the lobby of the builders and politicians, and we are helpless here. Still our protest is going on. Till our last breath, we will protest against the expansion of Terai Airport and will not give land to expansion of the Terai Airport. There is no need of airport to the Terai city. We have got railway line, we have got 2 national highways, we have got 4 state highways, and our area is an agriculture based area, and we are producing sugar. There are lots of sugar factories in and around Terai city, and what we are going to use with the airport, we are exporting our sugar by using railway lines and by using national highways. So airport is not at all required for the development. What government is claiming, airport is for development, but it is not required. Ground reality is, what is the development? We are producing only Yes, can you hear me, madam?
Now we have lost your signal, but maybe try again. So we still heard about the sugar exports that can actually happen without the airport.
Without airport.
Yeah.
So our irrigation scheme is getting affected. 3,200 agriculture land is in danger, and we are totally dependent on agriculture only.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Sandeep, for sharing the
Yes, thank you very much, madam.
story of your almost decade-long resistance against this expansion of an airport that is actually affecting the livelihood of many local small-scale farmers. And you mentioned the letters Stay Grounded has sent to the Prime Minister of India and to local authorities, and I'm very happy to hear that it actually was successful in halting the land reclamation process. And it's very inspiring to hear that you have been, even though you're dependent on your agriculture for life, you're still courageous in fighting this huge infrastructure project for so long. So are there any questions for Sandeep Shinde?
I have a question.
Yes, please. Adam, Isham?
It's less of a question and more of a suggestion. In 2017, like I said in my presentation, we were dealing with a situation in Kurudufushi, and we've been brainstorming here about brainstorming about having all the people who are impacted by it to request for compensation from the government or from whichever company. In our case, 400 women and their livelihood activities were impacted, and we're working with lawyers to file a case against the state and requesting them actually to compensate them for their loss of livelihood. So I'm thinking maybe that could be something which can be replicated in India or elsewhere as well, if you have a lawyer who's willing to work, or if there are organizations that are willing to work with the advocacy groups and activists like yourself.
So Isham asked if the ask for a compensation of the loss of livelihoods is something you consider to claim.
In India, I will give one example.
Sandeep?
Koyna Dam near to Karad city was built up in 1960. Still, rehabilitation issues are not solved. Now, third generation is protesting. Third generation. First generation affected, second generation protested, now third generation protesting. So this is a serious issue. They will acquire land. About rehabilitation, relief and rehabilitation. So we'll be on road if they are acquiring our land. There is no agriculture, no livelihood, our homes, everything will go. Our irrigation scheme, which is also getting affected totally. This irrigation scheme was developed by farmers, and this is the outcome of their 25-year struggle. After 25 years struggle, we have developed irrigation scheme. This is our own irrigation scheme, cooperative irrigation scheme, which provides water to 3,200 acre farmland. So how to prepare this irrigation scheme if they are acquiring our land? That's why we are protesting. This is, and in government record, CAG also recommended this project is economically non-viable. It is not required. It is on record. But this builder lobby, politician and government officers, they want this project for their personal benefit.
Unfortunately, I think we have not heard everything. I think now, wait a second, you're still on mute. Now I think we should hear you, Sandeep.
Yes.
Yes.
Government officials, builder lobby and politicians, they want this project for their personal benefit. They are not concerned about the worries of a common man and poor farmers.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes.
This maybe also shows that it's hard to actually be compensated for the land you depend on for your living, probably.
Yes, it is very hard. It is very difficult.
Okay, thank you, Sandeep.
Thank you very much, madam.
Since the signal is not so good, I would suggest that we end the question and answer session now.
Yes.
But thank you very much for sharing the story of your struggle, and we will, together with the network, continue to send letters with your assistance to whomever you consider best to address.
Yes, madam.
To support your struggle, definitely. And now I'm handing over to Sara Mingorría, who is from the Environmental Justice team, and who will tell us more about now zooming out again from the case studies to an overview over all the different projects that were analyzed, and who will tell us something about the patterns that can be seen from having a look on all the different airport struggles, and also how you can participate in the mapping. Sara, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to share the screen. Can you see the screen? Okay, first of all, I would like to say thank you, Mira and Manuel, for organizing this web seminar. As Annie said in an email, for me it's very important to open this kind of spaces in order to listen as much diverse voices as possible. No? As today we have people from a different part of the world, so for me it's very important. And yeah, and it was a privilege for me to listen people resistance to different part of the world. So thank you for bringing today your voices here. My intention, as Mira said, is to give some input of overview of patterns that we found in the analysis of 67 conflicts. And the idea why we are doing that is trying to co-produce new strategies to resist and transform our realities. So we know that the people we are struggling in our regions, but we are thinking how we can connect all of this resistance and imagine other kind of strategies globally. So please try to think with me how we can do that. You can see here in the screen 2 links where you can find this data. This is an open database, so you can go in deep. All of the 3 cases that you explained today, they are registered now. Sandeep was one of the contributors, so thank you for that. The link, you can find the map in the State Grounded website. This is the filter of cases related to airport conflict, but also you can see these cases in the whole platform that is called EnvJustice. You can see the link on the bottom. So I'm going to explain first of all how we have been working until now on mapping and collecting information, and then I'm going to present like an overview analysis made based on these 67 conflicts. So this is the whole platform, the EnvJustice database. As I said, this is an open inventory of standardized cases of environmental conflict. So here you can see different colors that represent different type of conflicts: mining conflict, sand conflict. So now in the state grounded website are only conflicts related to the infrastructures and the fuels conflicts. But we are seeing that there are many conflicts related, for example, to sand mining that are also related to the construction of this airport. So we can maybe create another map trying to relate this conflict, this airport conflict, with other kind of conflict. So now we have reported more than 3,000 cases, and we are working on translate the platform. Now it's in English, but we are working on translate the platform in Arabic, Mandarin, Spanish, French, Italian, and Turkish. This project started in 2012, and it was presented in public in the first time in 2014. And now there is funding by the EnvJustice project that is funded by the European Union until next year. So Toba asked this question before: who is co-producing this knowledge? We work with more than 200 people and organizations, grassroots movement, activists, academics. And I would like to say that also the design of this platform was co-produced by activists and academies. And the process of include this information, Rose can explain very well this because she has been working a lot in this. We have a system of moderation, and we check all of the information who will be published in this EnvJustice database. And always you can update and modify the information that is there. So the idea is, today the speaker explained different case studies. So our idea is how we can find patterns and compare these conflicts in order to have a complex idea what is happening, and also to define a new strategies to resist. So first of all, we need, in our point of view, we need a common definition of conflict. We know that there are many definitions, but in order to standardize these cases, we use this definition, that is a collective manifestation of this content that detonate when people organize themselves to denounce situations regarding not only unequal distribution of environmental benefit, but also unequal distribution of environmental costs. So the 3 cases that you present today can fix with this definition. But also I would like to say that for us, airport conflict is not only when the impact of the construction of this airport. If not, the conflict is more than that. No, the conflict is all the conflict that generated by the extraction of material, transport of this material, contamination, the pollution of the airplanes, and also all of the impact that you mentioned today, the evictions, the impact in the environment, no, the habitat of some sacred animals and sacred places, protected area. So for us, we try to look at the conflict, analyzing all of the steps of the industrial production in the airport industry. So what is the information that we include in this database? Based on this definition, we include all of the commodities that involve in the conflict, the companies involved, who is investment, the project impact, who is mobilizing, the strategies that the people are using, the actors that are involved, the description and chronology of the conflict, and also that this issue that for me is very important, how we define victories. No, now we have talked about compensation or not compensation is a victory, cancel moratoriums, and the connection between these victories with the strategies that we are using to resist. So here is the way as we are working. The people who would like to make visible their conflict, they contact us. Here I include the email of Rose, my email, and the EnvJustice team, in order to let us know we are interested to include information. And then there are two options. If the people want to create their own account, you can do that. So we are going to ask personal information in order to check who are you. And then you can include by yourself, as Sandeep did, create your account, but you can also have different contributors. So the people give information from the ground, and then there are 1 or 2 persons who include this information in the platform. And then there is a moderation of maybe Rose and me, who check all of the information to see that everything is clear, and the information you show evidence that this is happening there, and includes links to information online. So I include this example, like Sandeep create his own account, and then he includes as public other contributors. And then the second option, because we realize that sometimes it's very difficult to translate the information from the ground to this form. That is an analytical language, you know. So also you can send us just information, reports, links, and then we are going to translate this information to the form. But we are going to be in contact every time, checking information, ask questions, and resolve some doubts. So now I would like to show you what I am trying to do. That this is not be published now, so it's just something that I try to find answer to different questions using the information that we have already. So we have 67 cases, and then with a lot of information. So we need to choose which information will be relevant for us to define new strategies. So I asked some questions to the database. For example, I asked, are the number of airport conflicts increasing now? Do most of the airport conflicts take place on the global south? The mobilization and protests are principally motivated by the noises, pollution, and health issues. This is like this kind of conflict that most of the people are impacted by by the industry, so the people react. Or there are other kind of mobilization, for example, in favor of climate justice or other motivations. So these are my questions, but now we are here for thinking together, and if you have other kind of questions, we can see how we can ask the question to the database. So these are the previous results that I see that the conflict are increasing, and from the 2010. So something happened mostly with project in Asia. We can see that most of the projects now is taking place in Asia. So it's not an accident that 3 people from Asia is talking about today. But we can see that also in Europe, these conflicts are increasing now. And the type of conflict you talk about, different type of conflict today. Rose mentioned airport conflict, Aerotropolis, new airports, expansion of other airports, conflict related to the transport of fuel, and these special economic zones. And you mentioned today that most of these conflicts are related to the discourse and the promotion of the tourist industry. And also I realized that most of these cases also are promoted after post-disaster. So the argument is these places need airports in order to bring food and other issues after a disaster. And why the people are protesting? The thing is, the issue that we saw, as now Adam and Form they said, is because and also Bhola and Sandeep, you mentioned that the people protest because they depend on this land, on this place for living. This is the main issue. But also we are seeing that now, for example, state-grounded support the movement in India, in Nepal, and it's because there are other motivations. There are motivations that come from the mobilization in favor of climate justice or in favor of justice. And this is the topic that I am more interested, is about what are victories for us, no? And it's very difficult from different contexts and from different culture and from different experience. So we see that almost half of the cases, the people say that there were some victories. And these victories not always are related to cancel the project or stop the project, but sometimes are related to increase the resistance, or as the people from Maldives, they mention, like talk with the people, make consultation, and try to increase the motivation of people to be against of this project. And also a big issue is related to compensation. There are some cases that they say that it was a victory because from the beginning of the resistance, they claim for that. But in other cases, as Sandeep said, that it's very hard to accept a compensation, so it's not a victory. So in the cases that the people say it was a victory, was when the movement and the protest started before the project be started. So all of these 3 cases that you mentioned, still the project is not started. So it's more easy that we can not cancel or stop the project. And another input, how we can think together to define new strategies, we have been used the EnvJustice, this big database, in order to write in social media, in order to create a new discourse, in order to show what is happening around the world, and also to write, we are writing scientific papers, also to create new discourse in the power level. And we are doing active lobbying in European Commission and in other places. And also we are using this tool as an education tool, because it's a platform that you can use wherever you are, and also the people, for them it's very easy to use this kind of platform, and then you have all of the information, and you can, I mean, work with this information as you want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sara, for now giving this overview on the rising airport conflicts, where they are located, and what type of conflicts there are, and especially also what kind of conflicts are successful, and how people can participate in the mapping. So before we delve into discussion, are there any questions of understanding to Sara? For now,
I have one question.
Yes, Sandeep, please go ahead.
If government has acquired our land and on paper they have mentioned that this particular land is acquired for proposed expansion of Terai Airport, proposed. And in our country, the policy is that if land is acquired and for 10 years of duration, if government is not starting the project actually for that which is acquired, then it gets cancelled. So if Stay Grounded Network is helping us in this protest by giving letters to our Chief Minister of Maharashtra and Minister of India, then our protest may become successful. So this is regarding this issue, this serious concern about the. Definitely, government will not do development. Government will not do any airport. They will just acquire the land and they will sold this land to builder lobby. That is their plan, hidden agenda. And we have got so many examples in our state. So what is the policy to tackle certain conditions? Yes, madam.
Okay, Sara, do you want to answer on this tactic of delaying construction as a tactic of resistance?
I think that is a common for everybody. I mean, but for me, if the local people say that this is the good strategy, go ahead. I mean, I don't have anything to say about that. It's like, but the problem in some cases that the project is cancelled, but it's moved to other places, like in Mexico. We know very well this case. So also we have to be ready to know what is the second project going on, as in Maldives, for example, that the project is cancelled, but they are looking at for other places to develop the same project.
Thank you, Sara. This is why also it's important to connect the different struggles and resistances. So to counter the expansion plans everywhere and not just be successful one after each other. Other questions of understanding? I see. Rose?
Oh, hi. Yeah, I'd just like to reinforce what Sandeep was saying, because it does seem to be, I think it seems to me that airports are particularly prone to allocation of large land areas under the pretext of an airport development, and it could just be for just land acquisition for other purposes, because it's not like with mining where there has to be viability in terms of raw materials proven for extraction, or I just wonder if we need to sort of reflect that skepticism about what the projects actually are more, whether it is actually an airport or what the actual plans are.
Sara, you want to comment on that?
I think that is a question for Sandeep, or not? Or for me? Rose.
Hi. No, I was just reinforcing what you're saying, that it does seem to be that an easy way to acquire an area for development, for tourism or fossil fuels, or for commercial purposes. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Rose. Manuel has told me Bhola has a question. Oh yeah, he has wrote in the chat. Can we produce a scientific paper related to socio-environmental aspects so that we can use that paper for our lobbying and advocacy?
Yes, Bhola, I am agree with you. I am trying to do that, and it will be good if we can participate all together, so I can send like a proposal at that and then receive feedback and comments from you, and we can include cases that we consider relevant for the advocacy. So for me it could be great. Also we can, yeah, I agree.
I was just wondering if there would be, if Sara, if there's a paper looking at the socioeconomic impacts that you thought is a good effective, that we could look at the structure of it.
Rose, it was quite hard to hear you. Maybe you can reformulate or type in the chat. Is there any other comment or question that we can take first while Rose is typing?
For me, I think that here.
Okay, fine.
I think one of the things that we like as Maldives, most of our development projects are funded by EU and or ADB or World Bank or IMF, because they have been promoting tourism is the only way for our economic benefit, but we see it doesn't, the wealth doesn't distribute among the Maldivians. It's like most the Europeans coming from Europe to Maldives for their holidays, Or if we can make, EU accountable for, loans that they give to Maldives. So is there anything that we can do on that front? Even now, Malé International Airport is being expanded, and it's been done by Bin Laden Group. And it's millions have been spent on, ADB funds and like that.
Yeah, this is a very good point. And in fact, we are working on these issues now. We are trying to create a database with some people from the state grounded to detect companies where the investment come from Europe and World Bank and other developed banks. And yeah, try to filter of all of these cases and show in a map and write about that. Like this contradiction, like the European Union is investment in us, for example, like in this project of conflict, and at the same time, they have some companies investment in the airport. So I don't know if we have time, but I can show you also that you can use this database. It's not necessary that I create the data and write about that. But if it is useful for you, you can use the data. So maybe Rose, Mira, can I share my screen and show how they can do that? If we
Yes,
have not,
we have another 2 minutes in time of the webinar. So I don't know how long it will take to show how to use the database.
It's just to show the link and show how they can use the filter.
Okay.
In
the meantime, let me remind all of you that we're now collecting final questions and comments. So please raise your hand if you still want to make some final remarks. And now, Sara, the floor is yours again.
Okay, you can see here on the right, if you have an account, you can use these filters. So you can use the filter, and here you can select, for example, let me see, in project, you can say financial institution. So you can put here the name, World Bank, for example. So you can check how many cases we have registered where the World Bank invests in the project. So if someone would like to use this data, just ask me how to use, and I can show you more in depth. So here you can see the number of cases that we have in the database, and you can go to the different cases and see, I mean, read about them and write about them.
Okay, thank you very much, Sara, for showing this very powerful tool to actually also getting more detailed information on finance flows and companies involved. And you have provided your contact details in the presentation, which we hopefully can share with everybody afterwards, so people can contact you. So now we still have Rose, then Isham, and Tove for the last comments. Rose, please go ahead. Rose? We cannot hear you yet.
Oh,
maybe. Yeah.
Oh. No, I think Sara covered what I was thinking and explained that. So that's really good to have that clarification at the end. So thanks very much, and thank you very much, Mira and Manuel, for organising this. And it's really good to see everybody.
Thank you very much, Isham.
Yeah, just wanted to say that this is actually a very good way of maybe talking about strategies. I think what would be nice if we have this as series is to share what strategies that you use and what partners you work with that could be helpful for other other movements across the board to work on these issues, so that we can use some lessons learned from one conflicting project to an existing problem in their native countries. I think something more specific about that would be nice, but still this opportunity itself is very good. So thank you for all the partners, stay grounded, and everyone who's joined today. And we hope we learn something.
Thanks a lot. And I think Tove also wanted to say something still.
So about the international banks, so World Bank and ADB has a criteria on these projects, so that you can refer to, and also World Bank has ombudsman, so you can always kind of appeal to them too if they are financing your project. So please check their website. They have a criteria too, and these are A projects, so they are applied the hardest criteria because they are meaning loss of forest, loss of livelihood. So that's why the multinational banks have kind of policies that they should kind of be accountable to their projects. So, but EU is a big problem because we have tried to get the EU also be more responsible, but so far it hasn't. But at the moment, it's not possible to do anything because of the COVID. But anyway, so we try to get the EU more responsible also. So that's the next project to try to get it. But also AIB has some kind of criteria, but it's very weak. But anyway, where this ADB and World Bank has quite strict criteria and standards how to consult people and how to kind of, but you should kind of study them also and use their own grievance mechanism if you have problems. So that's the idea. Yes.
Okay, thank you. That was a recommendation to hold the World Bank and other financing institutions accountable to their own standards. And since we're at the end time of our webinar, I can just thank all of you once again for this very great insight into conflicts around airport projects. And we can take with us some further ideas on how to continue our collaboration. I noted down, first of all, the idea to develop a common scientific paper that can be used for advocacy, then tracing down finance flows and making companies accountable, especially aid institutions and companies in the European Union. And Sara already showed how the EG Atlas can also be used for this research. And then also what was another idea that came up, to actually extend this kind of exchange and to deepen the discussion into strategies used and strategies and partners that we work with. So this is definitely an idea for a future webinar, I would say. And what I've learned from this session today is that although conflicts, of course, every conflict is special and has its very own history and story, but at the same time, it's always worth to look at some kind of questions like who is being consulted for the project development, and who actually profits from the project, and who suffers, and what are moments for mobilization. So we learned, for example, from Save Maldives that this moment before election was a key moment to mobilize. And what are successful stories of conflicts that we can learn from. So Sara mentioned that most of the conflicts that were successful in one way or the other were resistances where the resistance started before the project was actually implemented. So this is, I think, something maybe motivating us to start with resistance as early as possible. And with this call to action, I will leave all of you for now. Having a second call to action, Manuel will also share the feedback form for the webinar with all of you in the chat.